Cool. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and joining us today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So I want to get started with the most basic question, which is why are you seeking a higher seat? Why are you running for mayor?
I'm running for mayor because I have a vision of Middleton as being a city where we meet our needs, where we have a strong sense of community, and where people have access to good information about what their city government is doing and how it affects all of us. And it's not a vision that's mine alone. It's a vision that's shared by the community leaders who've been approaching me all year and asking me to run for mayor. And it's shared by the dozens of volunteers who are now organizing around the idea of moving forward together. That's our vision and that's our campaign theme. So what do we mean by that? Moving. Middleton has a thriving economy. That's a great thing. But as a community with a thriving economy, we're growing. Our population is growing, our city is expanding, and we need to be able to manage all these changes in a way that keeps Middleton a nice community to live in, to work in, raise a family, and retire. Forward, we need to focus on meeting the needs of today, but we also need to keep an eye on the future. We need to be thinking 20, even 40 years ahead. The world is changing, our needs are going to be changing, we're going to be dealing with new technology, emerging problems, existing problems that keep getting worse, such as climate change. And if we're going to be able to thrive in the future, we need to be ready to adapt to all these changes when they happen. And the way to be ready for that is long-term planning. We also need to be open to new ways of doing things. We can't just continue to do business as usual. That just isn't going to cut it in today's fast-paced, changing world. And then finally, my favorite part of the theme, together. Middleton's greatest resource is our people. We have countless residents who dedicate hours and hours of their time every year to serving on committees, delivering meals to seniors, stocking the shelves of our food pantry, organizing and then running events such as our annual Good Neighbor Festival. We have an amazing and dedicated school board. Our school district is fantastic. We have businesses that are highly engaged in the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Middleton Business Association, and we also have service organizations who contribute their time and their effort to making the city a better place. All of us together make Middleton thriving and vibrant, and I think there's no limit to what we can do if we all come together and work together to continue to make Middleton the good neighbor city.
And I want to kind of dive deeper into your priorities in a second, but I want to touch on something that you said now and in your press release when announcing your candidacy, which was your priorities of, you said you have a leadership in grounded planning, transparency, and accountability. What does that look like to you? How does that work in practice?
A very tangible example of how that works is by letting my constituents know what I am doing as a representative, how I'm voting, and why. And so since I ran for election as alderperson in January of 2022, I have been doing a monthly e-newsletter that goes out to the residents in District 6, but I have a lot of subscribers. There are 1,000 now. I have subscribers from outside my district. And in each edition, I talk about what's going on in the council, what decisions we're making, also my committees. I serve on the Plan Commission and Finance and Personnel, so I address what we're doing in those committees and what decisions we're making that are going to affect the people. And then I explain how I voted and why. And I do this because I want that transparency. I want people to know what's going on in the city, what the city does to benefit them. We all know what the costs are, right, because we pay taxes, but it isn't always clear why we are charging the taxes we do. It's to pay for all the services and all the assets we have, things like parks and conservancy lands and roads, all of that. The accountability comes in because how can my constituents hold me accountable if they don't know what I'm doing? So I call it a labor of love to do this newsletter every month. It's a privilege to represent people. They've entrusted me to represent them on the council, and I figure it is my responsibility to help them understand what they're getting by having me as their representative and what their city government is doing for them.
And let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these issues now, because I was taking a look at your campaign website, and housing was something that you mentioned. And in Dane County, that is obviously a really big issue. Dane County is one of, if not the biggest growing county in the state right now. So what are specific initiatives that you would like to see the city of Middleton implement to address a growing population with a housing crisis?
That's a great question. And yes, Dane County is in a housing crisis. I've been working closely with the regional housing strategy that the county has put out, and Middleton's target in that strategy is to develop 318 new units of housing, whether rental or single family, 318 every year through 2040, and that's a big lift. The good thing about Middleton is we have plans, right? People ask a candidate all the time, so what are your plans, what are your initiatives? We have a lot of really great city plans. The mayor and the council and the staff, all our responsibility is to implement those plans. Make sure if we commission them or if we write them, we're carrying them out because those are the ideas we came up with. So this year, Middleton has been working on its very first affordable housing action plan. We are taking advantage of a provision of state law that allows us to use the closure of a tax incremental district, and I won't go into what that is, it's pretty complicated, but we're closing a very successful tax incremental district, or TID, and from that we are able to use the last year of the tax increment to pay for affordable housing, some way support it. This is a provision in state law. That amount is going to be $10.3 to $10.8 million, according to our excellent finance director. That's a lot of money. Other municipalities throughout the state use this provision of state law to support affordable housing, and they're working with amounts from a couple $100,000 to maybe $1 million. We've got $10 million available for this. So right now, the Workforce Housing Committee, which I serve on, and the Community Development Authority are partnering on writing the Affordable Housing Action Plan. We'll be presenting it to the council in January. I'm the only elected official on this writing group. And some of the things we're talking about are, for example, making it possible for people to upgrade their utilities or their appliances, put solar on the roof, increase insulation to make that existing housing more affordable to live in. We're focusing on affordable living, not just affordable housing. With $10 million available, though, we can also issue RFPs to have some builder who is accomplished and has a dedicated business for affordable housing, have those folks come in and develop affordable housing. We are considering options to make it possible for our seniors to live in place, because maybe their houses are already energy efficient and their utility bills aren't excessive, but maybe they're not well equipped for someone who might start using a walker or a wheelchair. So we have a lot of things on the table right now. We haven't come up with what the final plan will look like. We're going to be doing that this month. And as I said, we'll be presenting that plan to the council in January and then taking it to the people so that we can get their input on the ideas that we've put into the plan. And when that plan is ready, it will be our responsibility to make sure it gets implemented, because there's really no use writing plans if they're not going to be carried out.
And I want to ask too, because when we talk about a housing crisis, something that's been brought up a lot is this thing kind of called missing middle housing. What, you talked a lot about this affordable housing plan. Is that something that you're looking at for that as well? Is this something that has been a conversation? Is that missing middle housing?
Oh yes, definitely. Everybody's looking for that missing middle housing, and but it's difficult to get, right? Because people think of home ownership, putting down roots, right? They think the way to do that is to buy property. So apartments, for example, right now, there's sort of a backlash against the construction of apartments. I don't know about you, but I lived in an apartment for the first 10 years of my adult life, and I aspire one day to retire into an apartment when my husband retires, because I've already built the equity in my house. And I don't need all the space. I had 3 kids, and I only have one at home now. So the missing middle is important, but it's difficult to get because we don't have a lot of land to branch out into. Condos, everybody loves the idea of condos, but they just are not economically feasible because of some of the federal restrictions on financing. So that missing middle is going to continue to be missing for a while, and it's a result of just the economic forces that make it difficult to bring that about. But certainly, with our Affordable Housing Fund, we might be able to overcome those barriers and incentivize developers to build us those condos that are in such short supply.
And obviously, when we're talking about a growing population, we talk a lot about housing, but there's also public transportation that kind of goes along with that. So talk to me a little bit about what you would like to see the public transportation look like in Middleton.
Wow. I would love to see a lot more frequent service. I went to graduate school in Chicago, and in my career, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., which just has a phenomenal public transportation system. Right now, Middleton has some good transit lines through Metro Transit, and they're much appreciated. I use them on weekends when I want to go down to visit my husband who works at the Memorial Union, and I don't want to have two cars parked downtown. My district is on the north side of Middleton and sort of central north. We have 3 major new developments going in that district. That's all former farmland that is now being developed into mostly single-family homes, but also there's apartments and there will be some commercial development there. That population growth, I think, is going to make it possible to justify financially having a route that heads north and collects those folks, or the city embarking on a circulator system of some type so that we can collect people and deliver them to where we have established bus routes. But certainly to move people away from a car-centric society, we need to make sure that we're building where there are bus routes, or that we're moving bus routes to where people are building. We also need to make sure that we're working on mixed-use development where you have residential, but you also have services available, whether it's a grocery store, a dentist office, a vet, things like that. All of these things are possible. We just need to, again, all come together and think about how do we change our car-centric society into one where people can take transit, where our roadways are safe for all users, not just vehicles. I ride my bike a lot and I walk a lot, and I participate in the annual Week Without Driving. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but it's an effort to help elected officials and others see firsthand how limited our transportation system is if you don't own and drive a car. And it's really an eye-opener, and it has helped me to see how we need to focus on implementing what we call our complete streets policy, which is making sure that city projects related to roads always include things like bike lanes, multi-purpose paths. We're improving our bus shelters to make it more comfortable for people who have to wait for a bus, especially on a day like today when it's freezing. Those things are important, and they traditionally have not been part of Public Works focus. With our Complete Streets policy, just turned three years old in September, with that policy, we should be able to make that happen.
And you talked a little bit about safe streets, so I want to get your opinion on something too, because Madison has really been pushing this 20 is plenty initiative, which is slowing down the speed of traffic to try to get zero traffic or road fatalities. And I want to ask, is that something that you think would be successful in Middleton, or are there other initiatives that you would like to look at?
I have followed the 20 is plenty, and I've had some constituents bring that up as a possibility. And I do think it is worth having a conversation about whether this is what we need in Middleton. We already have a very low rate of fatalities, certainly, and but safety is always number one. We always look for ways to improve. I would like to have a community conversation and find out from people, is this something that they'd be willing to take on? Because I think the idea sounds great for everyone until they realize it's affecting them too. And they might not always see the benefit. So certainly it's something worth pursuing, and I look forward to asking our pedestrian, bike, and transit committee to take this up and consider how is Madison's experience going. There are other communities throughout the country that are doing the same thing. Is that something that we can bring here, and let's ask the people to tell us what they think.
And another priority of yours that we haven't had a chance to touch on so far is climate. I want to just give you a chance to kind of talk to me a little bit about what that looks like at a city level.
Sure. Well, Middleton in 2016 had a referendum. 80% of the people expressed interest in seeing the city take action to combat climate change. Can we do it alone? Of course not. But can we ignore the problem? No. So in 2018, prior to me joining council, the council passed a resolution to take us to a future where we derive all our power from clean energy sources. And for city operations, so our fleet and our buildings, that is supposed to happen by 2040. And for the entire community, the goal is to do it by 2050. And we're not the only community that has goals like this. I actually ran for council in 2022 because I didn't think our council was doing enough to move us towards these goals. They had passed the resolution in 18, but it seemed like they were treating it as a feel-good resolution and not one that we should actually be working towards. So we have a wonderful sustainability coordinator, but she was not getting the support from council for things like investing in electric vehicles and greening the fleet, things like that. So what I would like to see is us to really target hitting these goals, this 2040 goal and the 2050 goal. Greening the fleet, replacing our internal combustion engine or gas-powered vehicles with electric models, or at the very least, hybrid models. That's part of the solution. Putting solar on every building in the city that we can, that's another solution, including our wells. Our wells use $260,000 worth of energy each year. That's a lot. And if we could get solar on some of these wells, that'll cut down on that amount. It also means when we build we're talking about building new facilities. We have 3 downtown aging facilities in our library, our city hall, and our senior center. As we consider options for replacing or expanding these buildings, we need to build in from the start clean energy. So for example, geothermal energy. Sun Prairie just expanded their library and they retrofitted it to have geothermal energy. The cost up front is greater, but the long-term costs, because of the reduction in utility costs, it evens out. And it helps them achieve their climate goals. We need to be doing the same thing in Middleton when we build these new facilities, if that's what we wind up doing.
And you talked about the cost up front. I think that would be kind of a scary thing for a lot of people when they think about the cost of these developments. How are you going to get people on board for something that, you may not see the payoff until a couple of years down the line?
Sure. That's a great question. Well, in budgeting, I always ask, and now we're finally doing it, I always ask, what's the lifetime cost of this product, this purchase, this new vehicle? And I think we just need to be really transparent and open with people about, okay, here is the cost up front to build in these sustainability features. Here is the cost over 20 years if you factor in what it's going to cost to run these facilities. And I come from a policy background, we need to be able to add in, quantify somehow what is the reduction in greenhouse gases that we're achieving through this, because that's a value right there too.
And before we kind of wrap up this conversation, I want to get your take on local government funding. We've seen a lot of cities and municipalities have to go to referendum to ask their voters to raise the levy limit because they say that the state isn't stepping in to help. I wanted to get your take on how you think Middleton has balanced its budget and worked forward with constituents asking those questions to raise that levy limit.
Sure. Well, we did have a successful levy limit referendum in 2023, and that we foresee a future where we're going to have to come back to the voters. I tell people this is a feature, not a flaw, meaning the state legislature has set it up so that the only way municipalities can raise their levy limits above a certain small threshold called the net new construction. So the only way to get that permission is to go to referendum. Every municipality, including Middleton, has done everything they can to make do without going to a referendum, but at some point it just becomes necessary. In Middleton, just this year, we balanced the budget, and the way we were able to bring on new positions, for example, we have a police chief who was hired by the police commission almost a year ago today. His top priorities were two positions. One was a full-time trainer on the police force, and then two half-time community service officers to do the job of to do things that you don't need a sworn officer to devote time to. He wanted those new positions, and the mayor cut them from her executive budget. I restored them, and the way I was able to do that is work with our finance director to determine what are our options for increasing revenues to cover those positions. The way we came up with was a recycling charge. It is, I acknowledge this is going to be a tax for people, but it is the only way we can raise the revenue to pay for things like new positions in our police department. And people are so interested in public safety, that seems like a good investment. We have almost 800 acres of conservancy lands, and we didn't have a single person on staff who is devoted to maintaining those conservancy lands. So we are always paying contractors to do the work. With that recycling revenue, we can now hire our first conservancy lands technician. And we can also hire some more seasonal staff to work in our parks, conservancies, and work on our trees, maintain our trees in the summertime. These are all part of the needs. We need to meet our needs, and we need to find ways to do it without going to referendum. We're going to have to do it eventually just because of the way the state has worked this out. But I'm very pleased with the way Middleton, again, with a wonderful finance department and support from council, I'm really pleased with the way we've been able to make do with what we have without resorting to a referendum. And then next year, with the closure of our tax incremental district number 3, we will have an additional almost $1 million in tax levy, not charged on the folks who are paying taxes right now, but within the properties inside that district that have not been part of the tax base for us. So we will have additional revenue, and we'll be able to avoid having to go to a referendum next year.
And I want to talk to you about referendum because a lot of older folks are worried that they get priced out of their homes when these taxes go up so much, and they've already had their homes paid off. How do you talk with those folks about the need that's in the community to support resources, but also being faced with having to find the funding for that?
Yep, I completely understand. My mother passed away recently. When she had her own condo in Illinois, she benefited from a program in Illinois called Circuit Breaker, where seniors would have their property, seniors with a certain income level, I should say, had their property taxes capped. They wouldn't go up. My mother qualified because she had an extremely limited income. We don't have anything like that in the state of Wisconsin. I would like to see the legislature change that. And if there is a way, and I've asked the staff and our city attorney to look into this, if there's a way that we can use any of our affordable housing fund when it's created to help seniors who are facing that same type of situation, very limited income, property taxes going up, I think we should invest in that because our seniors are part of the community. They have knowledge that the rest of us don't yet have. And I want to make sure that Middleton remains a welcoming place for seniors and anybody who wants to retire here. I have a lot of constituents who have retired here because their children live here and they want to be by their grandchildren. So I want seniors to know that they are valued. That's why we don't call it a workforce housing plan, because that sort of excludes anybody who's not in the workforce. We intentionally are calling it the Affordable Housing Action Plan.
And I want to just kind of wrap up our conversation now with one or two last questions for you, which is, why are you the best candidate for mayor?
I believe I'm the best candidate because I put in the most time. I think my colleagues on council, they do an excellent job. Many of them have day jobs. I am fortunate to have been able to retire early. I did retire early during the pandemic so I could take care of my mother who was living with us at the time. And this is my second chapter. I spent my career in public policy at the state and federal and even provincial and tribal governments. I worked with all of them, but never really the local government. So working in local government is my second chapter. I have a passion for this work. I love helping people. I got into the work because I love policy and learning and studying. I like having vision and also working on the details to get us to that vision. Along the way, I discovered the joy of having people appreciate that someone is listening and someone is helping them to solve their problems. I met a constituent for the first time just a couple weeks ago, and she was so thankful that I took time out of my day to meet her in the cold to talk about a problem. She hugged me. I had never met this person before, and she just was so grateful. And I said, this is exactly why I'm in public service. And so I feel like by putting in the time, by serving on our Plan Commission and our Community Development Authority, both bodies that guide the development of Middleton and what Middleton looks like. Our mayor quit both of those during her first term. I will take on those roles and chair the Plan Commission and seek to chair the Community Development Authority. I will continue to do a monthly newsletter. It will go out to anybody in Middleton who wants it, and I'll change the format a little bit so it's not so focused on District 6 issues. And I will also reach out to our partners in the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Association, and the school district, because we all have good relationships. We all get along, but we don't actively work to collaborate. We did just recently with the community-wide food drive that we had. All of us came together and pushed the same messages out that food is available for people who are losing their SNAP benefits, and for people who don't receive SNAP benefits, if they could, please donate food and money to our food pantry, Way Forward Resources. And the response was amazing. And I feel like our mayor, our leader, should be the person who actively builds relationships so that when we have these needs come up, when we have a need for support for affordable housing, we can tap these partners and all push together in the same direction at the same time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down, taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Ellie.